Cakes, pastries, and even sweetened coffee drinks are things we find ourselves reaching for over the holiday season. But how can we make this holiday season a bit healthier for everyone? I'm your host, Kristin Trent, and this is In the Studio with Davis Media Access. Today, I've invited a special guest to talk about his experience as a self proclaimed picky eater and also his experience as an executive director for Yolo Farm to Fork in hopes to share some healthy eating alternatives this holiday season. Thank you for joining us, Salvador.
Thank you, Kristen. It's very wonderful to be here with you and with Davis Media Access.
Excellent. So, I want to hear about your personal experience with healthy eating. What has that been like for you?
Well, for me, it's a lifelong balance that I've hopefully struck, obviously with ebbs and flows, as a 26-year vegetarian at this point. I've been a vegetarian since the age of 9, and choosing to be a vegetarian has been something that you know made me be like a I would say reluctant healthy eater at first, and certainly informed the work that I do now with Yolo Farm to Fork.
And tell me a little bit about that work. What does it look like being an executive director and helping children with healthy eating programming?
Great question. Yeah, so Yolo Farm to Fork, we have over 60 edible gardens here in Yolo County, and we are there to inspire the children to learn how to, elementary school age children, to learn how to plant food, starting from seed or starters, wait patiently to get that wonderful produce harvested, and then we at times do some cooking lessons. And so throughout that whole process, the really important and key thing that we focus in on with the programming we do with these children is getting them excited about not just the process, but helping them understand, the logic behind what it is that they're growing, what it means for their health and their longevity, and building leadership along the way. When they get the confidence that they see the things that are coming out of the ground that they did, that they can then take back to their parents and share how they did it and replicate it at home. That's really a huge thing. And especially for the holiday season, which I know this is um, what we're coming into at the moment. We try to focus in some of the field trips where there are the cooking lessons around the times of the year. So certainly we've been doing recent programming related to holiday eating.
I love that. So getting excited around healthy eating and finding that reward in a farm to fork approach. So tell me, how are the holidays a trigger for poor eating?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's just so easy when you have it's not just the little kids having the holiday breaks, but also us older adults having some time off from work. You're just a little less on a regimen, and in the school system, the kids who are are eating, on the schedule. They have their whole nutritional plan that the school district helps craft alongside with them. And when there's that holiday break time, you're off that regimen, and so it's so easy to be tempted by all the wonderful things that are marketed in the grocery stores for the holiday season. And oftentimes it can look like, things that are very comforting. So things that are super warm, super buttery, super like packed with some of those things that might not be so healthy. Um, and just remaining cognizant of that during those break times is super important. We try to we try to give ourselves grace during that time, but also let the children know that, please expect you're going to be offered lots of cookies and wonderful bread. And, think about the stuff you grew and how you can incorporate that into those meals that you and your family are preparing to share for other family members.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways that we give into holiday temptation, whether that's potlucks, family events, or even just sharing cookies at school. Tell me, what has it been like to promote healthy eating in school children? Were there any challenges you faced?
That's a great question. Yeah, I will say there are. And I think it also changes as the types of snacks that are marketed to children change. They become a bit more sophisticated where it doesn't always look like it is unhealthy, but when you actually like get down to the nitty gritty and read some of the labels, you can tell, uh, this is not healthy food for them to eat. And let's see. So yeah, it's just something that we want to make sure that when we're working with the kids, and at times working with their parents, that everyone is able to sort of be on the same page about health plans. Um, and I try to share anecdotally with the children, some of like my background as the reluctant picky eater. Um, and I'll share information about like one of my favorite um, recent stories is we had a school that had been growing kale, like over abundantly growing kale. And so, of course, we figured out a plan for them to incorporate that. In alignment with our nutrition department for their meals, but we went ahead and donated some of that extra kale produce to other schools. And in doing so, I was talking to the children about how there's super fun and tasty ways to reimagine kale in a way that like takes it away from thinking about it as like, ew, this is healthy and not going to taste good, to thinking about it, oh, this is like a snack. And we did that by making kale chips, dehydrating the kale and allowing the kids to, make them in a way that is like akin to what they see in the stores, like some of those chips, like some of the powder they put on it, but doing it in a way that's way healthier. And I will tell you, it like revolutionized the way that these children were thinking about kale. Like they were super excited about kale and wanted to plant more kale and like asking all these questions. And that's exactly what we want. We want them to be excited about healthy food and healthy eating.
I love the idea of being tempted by kale instead of potato chips. I think that what you've done there is taking something that we'd all be tempted by, a bowl of potato chips at a party or even a get together, and replace it with something that's healthier at its base. So I think that, can adults find something to learn from this as well? I mean, are we that different from children and do we have those same temptations? And that's a question for you.
That's yeah, I actually love that question because as I was mentioning earlier, as someone who is a picky eater myself, I know that it's a balance, and striking that balance is going to be affected by so many different factors, not just internally, like internal factors of making sure you're on your healthy regimen. It can also be impacted by outside influences. And the way that I kind of want to frame my answer here is, um, those outside resource or those outside influences affect how people of all ages respond to the stimuli around them. So some of the areas we work in here in Yolo County, the children are coming from homes where they're socioeconomically disadvantaged. And when you think about like the idea of the home, it's not just the kids who live there in that age group, it's the adults and elder adults. So that spectrum of people affected by the outside factor of, poverty, it can have an effect on what everyone in that age range eats. And that's just one example of outside influences. And certainly, as kids can be affected by outside influences, so can adults. And it's really just, I think remaining cognizant of that. And in the programming we do, we try to make sure that the types of um, produce that we're having the kids become excited about growing, that it's stuff that is actually sustainable for them to do in their own homes, in their own little mini gardens with their parents and their grandparents, because we don't want to add an extra burden.
Hmm. So, this advice is something that not only kids can take to heart, but adults or parents of children who don't want their bad eating habits to go onto their kids. So, what advice do you have for adults during this holiday season? How do you stay away from the tempting cakes and pastries, or maybe, that all too common sweetened caffeinated drink in the morning?
Yeah, so and one you didn't mention is eggnog. That's one that gets me.
Mhm.
So my advice would be to try to really like sit down, make a plan for the holiday season about what it is that you want to feature and what it is you want to like really, really, really put your love into when you're making the meals and baking and cooking. And just start looking at what could maybe be stripped away. What could be, um, let's say, like substituted. So, for example, holiday popcorn, that's one that we certainly were able to inspire the children recently about how to make popcorn healthy, especially from corn that you grow yourself. And we were able to teach them about ways to think about what gets added on to the popcorn, that also has an effect on your health. And so if as an adult you're thinking about, well, I want to make sure that my holiday popcorn is the best one at all the holiday parties today. Well, great, you can do that, but just think about, if we're teaching the kids how to make healthy popcorn that's still tasty, how can you do it too? And I think it's going to be part of that balance. You have to really like weigh the values of how you want the food to taste and what you want it to say about you. Because if you're coming to a party with a bowl of healthy popcorn, but it tastes amazing, you're the biggest hit.
I love that idea, and it also sparked something within me, um, a little recipe that I've been doing this holiday season as I actually took your advice, Salvador, without realizing that I had. I identified 2 things that really sparked that holiday joy for me, which are warmed apples and cinnamon. And so what I've been doing
Mm,
is taking those 2 ingredients and, for instance, making baked cinnamon apples, or this morning I had toast with Greek yogurt and then some apples and cinnamon sprinkled on top. And in that way, you're taking a healthy base, like even the popcorn you're mentioning, and then just adding that little bit of joy and that holiday spirit while staying healthy. So I think that was a great tidbit of advice you had there. And I thought it was funny that it's something that I've been thinking about as well.
we do what we can.
Exactly. Well, it's been a pleasure to hear about all of these things that you've learned at Yolo Farm to Fork, as well as your own personal experience. Navigating the holiday season, being a picky eater yourself, and finding ways to indulge in whole, healthy foods. So I want to thank you once again for joining us in the studio today, Salvador. My name is Kristin Trent, and this has been In the Studio with Davis Media Access.